Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Tim Hankewich, back from your big trip to New York.
Yes.
So before we start talking about this weekend's concert,
Right, yeah.
Let's talk. I want to hear about your New York adventures. So for those who don't remember, previously on the Culture Crawl, we revealed that right after the orchestra did the simulcast performance of the movie Jurassic Park, you were asked to go to New York City and assist the New York Philharmonic in their version. So how was it?
It was fabulous. You're right. I was the backup quarterback because it's doing film with live music it requires a unique set of skills, and so I just recently did it here, and they said, hey, we need a backup because they are expensive, and they had a 5-concert run, and so it's pretty standard for orchestras of that size to have a backup just in case. But it was wonderful to hear. And I think offline I was just talking to you, I think we have every reason to hold our heads very high here in Iowa. Yes, the New York Philharmonic has access to a broader pool of musicians, and when you can field 16 first violins and 14 second violins, there's a sheen to the string sound that you can't duplicate with just rehearsing. However, having said that, like note per note, execution, professionalism, the actual end product, we hit so far above our weight class here with Orchestra Iowa. So as I was sitting in this vaunted temple of music in New York, I was also saying, hey, we need to be so much more grateful for what we have here because it really is stunningly great in comparison.
So, obviously the New York Phil is the New York Phil, but I think what I'm hearing you say is the quality drop-off between New York musicians and Iowa musicians, not that much.
We do well, and when I hear apathetic voices saying, oh, the orchestra's good enough for Cedar Rapids in the area, I said, you don't know what you're talking about. We hit so far above our class that if you actually heard the orchestra that is quote-unquote good enough for the area, you would be sorely disappointed because what we do is of an extraordinarily high level. And so just throughout that week, as grateful I was for the experience, I became more and more proud of our ensemble.
Aside from feeling good about what we've accomplished here, what was your other big takeaway from that experience?
Well, there are some, nothing solves a bunch of problems like a big sack full of cash. Because one of the big differences we did between the two performances, when we did Jurassic Park here, I was the only one with the click track. And I was reconciling, and a click track, for those of you who are listening who don't know what I'm talking about, it lays the tempo out precisely so it lines up with what's happening in the film. And so I have a click track so I know exactly what the tempo and tempo changes are going to be, and the orchestra follows my conducting. And sometimes I have to reconcile what the orchestra is doing with what the click track is doing because sometimes they're not exactly together, and I have to figure out ways of shimmying them together. Well, when you have endless resources, everybody in the New York Philharmonic was on a click track. So it was like playing Jurassic Park with training wheels. So that's why I was so proud of our orchestra, because my goodness, we were so tight and so on it with this film, and yet we did it the hard way.
Now, as you referred to yourself as the backup quarterback.
Yes.
So did you step in and do any conducting in rehearsal or anything? You were just literally there just in case.
Just in case
the other conductor fell off the stage and broke his leg.
Correct. And Guido didn't show up for that. So but that's fine. It was also great just to see how other orchestras operate, the operations behind the scenes, and compare it to what we do. And again, the symphonic world is not too different, regardless of the professional symphonic world. Despite the size of the organization, a lot of the internal mechanisms are the same. So it was kind of neat seeing what was going on behind the scenes.
And it also doesn't hurt that the New York Philharmonic now knows that if they need a quality person, they call Iowa.
Well, in fact, they just did again. Because, the week before Christmas, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing for Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Well, congrats on that. I still think
you.
that is, I am pleased but not surprised that our orchestra stands up
great to
to
put it that way.
other orchestras.
Yeah.
But also just really thrilled that you're kind of out there preaching the good word about, hey, Iowa, Midwest.
Yeah.
Not
just flyover country. We've got some
right.
great art happening here throughout the state. Yep.
But that means, and then that leads us exactly to where we're going with this week's concert as the Centennial 100th season continues.
Right.
This is, you've already had some big ones.
Yeah.
This is a big one, though, where you get a welcome back one of our own.
Yeah, so the whole program is called Homecoming, and there's a couple of layers to the reason why it's called Homecoming, starting with our guest artist, Connor Hannick, pianist, born and raised in Iowa City. And he's gone off to New York and done great things. He's recently performed with the New York Philharmonic. This year, he's also performing with the San Francisco Symphony. He's kind of built a reputation on new music, although he'll be coming to Iowa to do a standard favorite of mine, the Brahms First Piano Concerto, which is it's like the musical equivalent of eating a chocolate fondue. It's absolutely fun and beautiful. But to have him back, to celebrate his accomplishments and also to point to other Iowans and up-and-coming musicians that, yes, you too can follow in his footsteps. And yes, Iowa produces great music, which leads me to the second piece that we're performing, which is Dvorak's Ninth Symphony from the New World. And it still astonishes me to this day that Iowans don't realize that three of the greatest works written by Dvorak, his Ninth Symphony, his cello concerto, and this a string quartet called the American String Quartet, were all written while he was visiting Iowa in Spillville in the early 1900s. And the music, these particular pieces, are our birthright and our legacy. And so it's kind of neat to put these two pieces in side by side with each other, because the slow movement is often called Going Home, for those of you who know the melody. And so to have that melody in concert with Connor Hannick coming home, it's just a perfect program to put together.
And not just, Dvorak did not just compose the music while he was in. So for those who don't know the story, they brought him to New York from what now?
Yeah, from Bohemia.
From Bohemia,
then,
yeah. And then he wanted to take a break.
Right.
And they knew of the Czech community in northeast Iowa, the Spillville, Protovan area.
Right.
And somehow got the word that would be, you could go there and you could kind of be with your people.
Yeah, it would be just like going home.
Right.
Right. And in fact, his secretary, a guy by the name of Josef Jan Dvorak, who was born and raised in Spillville, went to Prague to study the violin and became his personal secretary.
Oh, so that was
that's how he got
okay.
here. Yeah, and so he became sort of his American guide when he came to the New World. And so for these 2 years, Dvorak was writing this music, and he was being influenced by black spirituals and Native American folk singing and the pop culture of ragtime and Scott Joplin and all that sort of stuff. And this was what was kind of spinning in his mind, because he was also hired to come up with an American sound, because at this time in the world, there was no such thing as American music. It was all played by symphonic orchestras, written by Europeans. And so empires across the world were trying to assert their cultural dominance and independence from each other. And the U.S. was this up and coming upstart of a country, and they wanted a national sound. So what did? They hired Dvorak to come and find one. And he said, hey, guys, all the source material is staring you in the face. You know this guy by the name of Scott Joplin? Yeah, that's American. Yeah, these spirituals, that's American. You got to be using it. And so that's what you hear in the Ninth Symphony, and that's why it's such a great work. And that's why Iowans need to be super proud of our musical legacy.
Sometimes it takes somebody coming from someplace else,
right,
to help you realize
what
you got.
Exactly right. So this whole couple weeks has been a great week for Iowa, I think.
You mentioned that the Brahms concerto that Connor's going to be playing, one of your favorites now as a pianist.
Yeah.
And great birthday concert right before you left. That now seems like a long time ago.
It does, doesn't
it?
Sudden. Yeah.
But everybody got a chance to hear you play for the first time in a long time.
Right, yeah.
So as a pianist, what is it about Brahms and this work in particular that makes it such a tasty chocolate.
Well, there are. We've talked about this in the past, that there are works on the mountaintop, concertos by Rachmaninoff, for example, and then the famous ones by Tchaikovsky and Grieg. They're all on the mountaintop. But then there's an extra leap in that sort of stratosphere of deep music making, and that's where the Brahms piano concertos come in. I mean, the second piano concerto is also just, I think, the top of the top, and the first piano concerto is a close second. They are. So I think any pianist, I think drools with the prospect of playing these pieces, because they are the music is so deep. The technical requirements are so high. And it's kind of symphonic in nature. I mean, both orchestra and pianist are kind of in equal dialogue with each other, and what you end up with is this massive monument that is just so satisfying. In fact, it's hard to determine whether to put the concerto on the first half or on the second half of a program, because it's that big of a steak to eat. This time we're putting it on the first half because you've got to end with the New World. But it's just one of those pieces. As a pianist, it's really on the mountaintop, technically, but more importantly, musically.
Homecoming with Orchestra Iowa. Now, 2 shows to be at the Paramount in Cedar Rapids on Saturday, but then in Sunday, Connor's hometown. So please come out and come hear him and support him, because he's so awesome to hear. We're performing at the Coralville Center for the Performing Arts at 2:30 on Sunday. And that is a wonderful room. That is an intimate room.
It is.
So it will be a great opportunity.
You will be right up there on his lap, basically, while he's performing. Yeah.
Well, this has been one that has been on my radar since the very beginning.
Good.
Because
Me too.
These pieces and getting to bring Connor back is just a huge feather in our collective cap, and another great landmark along the way in the 100th season.
It's also a great way to sort of we're lining up Thanksgiving. Much to be thankful for, and we've got this incredible musical legacy here in Iowa, both historically and currently in Orchestra Iowa.
If people want tickets or more information, they can visit your website, which is?
orchestraiowa.org or artsiowa.com. Or you can pick up the phone and talk to a real live person at 319-366-8206.
Well, have fun this weekend.
I will. Thank you.
Tim Hankewich from Orchestra Iowa. You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio many weekdays at 10:30, or download the podcast, watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or however you get your podcasts. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.